Today is Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. It is 8:30 a.m., and I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy. Notice of the October meeting of the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy, including date, time, and location, has been properly noticed, and the agenda was posted to the Board of Accountancy website on Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. Individuals who wish to make a public comment on an item listed on the posted agenda during the scheduled public comment period will need to sign in on the provided sign-in sheet or by placing their name in the chat box online. It's requested that comments be limited to 3 minutes out of respect to others. At this time, I would like to ask Karen Condon to confirm a quorum in the room.
Greg Gilbert.
Present.
John Griesbeck.
Present.
Rob Vance.
Present.
Sam Bennett.
Present.
Andy Bonner. Brad Buchanan.
Present.
Michael Bryant.
Present.
David Crenshaw.
Present.
Brad Floyd.
Present.
Amelia Hart.
Present.
Daniel Moore.
Present.
Good. So we do have a quorum, and for the first time in 18 months or so, we have a full board here, right, Jen? Mike Parton's seat went, it was vacated for a while, and so it's been a good while since we've had 11 board members at the meeting, so it's good to see everyone today. Glad we have a full house. I would like to also, again, welcome our 3 newest board members, Daniel Moore, Amelia Hart, and Michael Bryant, and they introduced themselves yesterday. We're very thrilled to have you all serving on the board with us, so welcome again. We do have a number of visitors, guests, staff members today, and I'd like to take just a little bit of time and introduce those folks to you. Hopefully you've met some of them, but of course at most of our meetings, Duke Speed is with us. He's with the Board of Accountancy, and Karen Condon. Karen keeps all of us straight, and so we're glad to have them with us as normal. But we also have the privilege of having Leanne Blair with us. Leanne, do you mind to raise your hand? And Laura Pekinis. Laura's with us, and then I think Scott was here. He's here somewhere. Scott. Okay. So we're glad to have you all with us today, and thank you for the work you do on our behalf and on behalf of the licensees of the state of Tennessee. And then we also are pleased to have 4 members of the NASBA team. And do you ladies mind to come up? I asked them if they would introduce themselves, so they're going to come and do that.
Hi, I'm Karen Turner with NASBA's Client Services Exam and Licensure.
I'm Kayla. I am an exam and licensing credential specialist.
Hi, I'm Ashley Campbell. I'm an education and research specialist at NASBA.
Good morning. I am Chelsea Price. I am the manager over exam and license credential specialists.
Thank you all for being with us, and welcome. I did ask them if they know someone named Wendy Garvin, and they have met her before, so that's good. As I mentioned yesterday, the representatives from the TSCPA will not be with us today. They are attending the AICPA council meeting. And finally, I would ask board members to please remember to turn your microphones on when speaking and off when finished. Okay, hopefully everyone has taken time to review the agenda, and we do need to adopt and approve it this morning, so I would entertain a motion to do so.
Mr. Chairman, I move that. Maybe, am I there? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the agenda for this morning's meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Before we approve the minutes, Dr. Hart asked me if she could make a comment. Would you like to do that now, Amelia?
Yes, thank you so much. I wanted to state that it was a great privilege to hear that the board recognized both Doug Warren and Larry Elmore. Both of them were very close personal influences and friends. And because of the work that they did, especially Doug Warren over a decade plus, never said no to any request, I picked up an energy and an enthusiasm for the profession, and the work that he does and has done is timeless. And same with Larry Elmore. He took everything he did with such significant, passionate commitment to it. That level of excellence and mentorship was critical. So I just wanted to acknowledge both of those and the board for taking the time to recognize the important work that many persons in the profession do. And one last for Director Brinkley and her staff in the onboarding process was so patient and efficient. So I just want to also say thank you to them. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Amelia. And as I've mentioned time and time again, those gentlemen were both very close to me. Personally, I traveled a good bit with Doug, and Larry and I typically rode over to these board meetings together. So very good, gentlemen. Thank you for those comments. At this time, we would like to approve the minutes. Mr. Secretary?
Yes, I've had a chance to review and edit the minutes, and they are so submitted. I believe, was there one correction?
So noted. Mr. Bryant, did you have a comment?
It's a minor one on page 3. The less is more act is not capitalized. I know this is critical.
So I'm assuming that will be corrected.
I will
and,
make sure that gets into the final version.
Okay, and with that addition and edit, they are so submitted.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. Motion and second. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Ms. Binkley, I think you're up next.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. You were provided a copy of my report in your advanced materials. I will read through it, and I have a couple of additions since the version that was sent out. So first, I'll start with future meeting dates. The future meeting dates are Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, Tuesday, May 5th, 2026, Tuesday, August 11th, 2026, and then Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026, with committee meetings happening on the Monday before each of those dates. Those were all previously approved by the board and do not require any further action at this meeting. Next week, I have the pleasure of attending the 118th annual meeting of NASPA in Chicago. Attending along with me, we have 3 board members, Greg, Mr. Griesbeck, and Mr. Bonner, attending representing Tennessee, as well as Mr. Lott, our board attorney, and then Mr. Reed Witcher, our assistant commissioner. So I'm looking forward to that, learning some more and being with other jurisdictions. Moving along, sunset hearing. The Tennessee State Board of Accountancy was scheduled for a public sunset hearing before the Commerce, Labor, Transportation, and Agriculture Joint Subcommittee of the Government Operations Committee last Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. Prior to the hearing, board staff prepared responses to a list of questions regarding the activities of the board for the prior 2 fiscal years, and that questionnaire was administered by the Comptroller's Office and provided to legislators in advance of the hearing. Chairman Gilbert, myself, Assistant Commissioner Reed Witcher, Board Counsel Lee Lott, and Legislative Director Candace Dawkins attended the hearing where the committee recommended a 4-year extension for the board. This will go to the legislature in the form of a bill in the spring. I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Okay. All right, moving along, an update on CPA exam performance. So you'll see included in your materials, I have attached the Q2 2025 CPA exam performance information that NASPA provides us every quarter. I've also included in the report Tennessee candidates pass rate and sections taken volume information you'll see there in both a table and a graph format. I'll also add that I was able to participate in a virtual meeting hosted by the AICPA a month or so ago. The goal was to provide boards of accountancy an update on recent Board of Examiners meetings, discussions, and developments regarding the CPA exam. The meeting was led by Michael Decker, AICPA Vice President of CPA Examination and Pipeline. For context, the Board of Examiners is an AICPA committee of volunteers that oversees the administration of the exam and assists in the development of the exam strategy. The board is comprised of 8 NASBA-nominated appointees, 7 AICPA nominated appointees, and 3 non-voting psychometricians. The messaging in that meeting was that through Q2 2025, testing volume and pass rates are increasing. In 2025, continuous testing was restored for core sections of the exam. If a candidate fails in a calendar quarter, they can come back and test again in that quarter. Testing for discipline sections is still only allowed in specific months each quarter, which is currently the first month of each quarter, and that is expected to remain the case for 2025 and into 2026. You can see below I included the CPA exam testing volume and pass rate information for Tennessee candidates for your review, and you can see in the data that Tennessee candidates, both the number of sections that are being taken and our pass rates are both going up through Q2 2025, so we're trending in the way that they're seeing nationally. I will continue to provide updates on exam testing volume and pass rates in my future director's reports. Any questions on that? All right, moving to outreach. Since the July board meeting, the following 4 outreach events have occurred. I participated in the TSCPA Future CPA Leadership Summit, where I presented on exam and licensure requirements to a group of CPA candidates. I participated in the TSCPA chapter meeting for the Appalachian chapter in Johnson City about a month or so ago, where I shared a brief update on board activities. I also was invited to attend the Belmont Accounting Reception and Dinner with Lexi Kessler, chair of the AICPA, and I participated in 2 TSCPA virtual town halls, one for students and CPA exam candidates and one for firm leaders. Both of those were led by TSCPA CEO Kara Fitzgerald, and we fielded questions regarding the changes from less is more for both of those groups. And then in addition to the outreach events that I noted in my report, I'm happy to report that at the request of the TSCPA, the governor recently proclaimed the month of November to be Accounting Opportunities Month in Tennessee. Our office facilitated the request with the governor's office on behalf of the TSCPA. And lastly, we do have a board newsletter that is shortly forthcoming, hopefully sometime this week. I have been working diligently to get that published with NASBA, and we expect it to go out to licensees and exam candidates in the next week or so. All right, moving on to CPE audit status. So I included some stats in the report that went to you about where the CPE audit stands. We have substantially completed our review of all of the licensees that were selected for CPE audit. Just to recap, and some of these numbers you heard in July, but we selected 583 licenses for an audit of CPE compliance. Audit notification emails were sent to licensees on May 1st, with reminders emailed on June 5th and July 3rd for those who had not responded. We followed up with certified letters to any licensees who had not responded as of July 16th. So you'll see included in your, like I said, included in your report is a breakdown of the compliance rates. Overall, the compliance rate for processed audits is 90.1%, which includes licensees who self-identified CPE noncompliance at renewal and completed penalty hours.
Hey, Jen, what is home state exemption?
I hope I don't misspeak, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially it's where a licensee has a reciprocal license in Tennessee. They're completing the CPE requirement by their state. I'm going to let you speak to that.
If a Tennessee licensee also has a license in another state and they live in that other state, they're compliant with our CP requirements if they're also compliant with their home state requirements, provided the home state also requires state ethics for renewal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. All right, any other questions on CPE audit status or results?
Jen, I have a question. The 15 identified as non-compliant, penalty not completed. Where would we be in that process? Are we going back and forth with those folks? Say you've got to do this, or are we terminating their license?
So
Or
those would be individuals that, you know how we talked yesterday about how if we identify a licensee to be out of compliance with their CPE requirements, and we give them we notify them, we have identified you're out of compliance, we give them a certain time frame to complete those penalty hours and turn them into us. Those individuals in that bucket are in that scenario where we're waiting on penalty hours to be submitted. Oh, well, yeah, I was about to say the expert was sitting behind me, but she's no longer here. Okay. All right. Moving along to performance metrics for Q3 2025. So the metrics that are listed here are things that our team is held accountable to by the Regulatory Boards Division of Department of Commerce and Insurance. So you'll see average number of days to license. Our board's goal is 7 days, and in Q3 of 2025, our actual number of days to license was an average of 5.8 days, which was a decrease by almost 2 days compared to Q2, and we issued 40 more licenses this quarter than we did in Q2. My team is incredibly efficient, and I'll say too, a lot of that sometimes just depends on candidates who have open items that we can't make them, respond to us. But that could affect that number, but I'm proud of that metric for this quarter. Our customer service rating for Q3 2025 was 97%. Our case and complaint performance, which we have a department goal to have 90% of our complaints resolved within 180 days. For Q3, we were at 87%, and our online adoption rate is at 100%. Two other things that I'll highlight here. So the first, and I shared this with some of y'all individually before, but our board, you might recognize these license certificates that are printed and mailed every time you renew your license or when an individual receives their initial license. These are not required to be printed and mailed in statute or rule. Any licensee can log into their account in Core and easily generate this certificate and print it for themselves. Licensees are not required to have this physically on them like some other professions are. So we are in the process of moving away from printing and mailing these. And I did want to give the board a heads up and give you an opportunity if anyone has strong opinions about that to let me know. We're not making any changes to the printing and mailing of wall certificates that go out, just these actual license certificates. Okay. And then the other, just because I like to brag on my team, I wanted to read y'all an email that we got a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to, I don't know. I was just really proud to get this email. So this is from a licensee who had called in twice asking for assistance with helping change their license from active to inactive. So she said, just had to take a minute to extend my appreciation to both of you for your assistance in the online application process to update, change my status from active to inactive in October. Both of you and this was my licensing team. This was not about me. I did not help this licensing. Both of you superseded any expectations I might have had after first attempting the process online on my own. You both demonstrated extreme knowledge and skill in the most kind, efficient, and professional manner possible. What an asset you both are to the state of Tennessee and the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy. So I feel like a proud parent of my team, and I just had to share that with you guys. All right. The last 2 pages of my report are simply an overview of the number of licenses and firm permits that have been issued in recent quarters, as well as a snapshot of our licensing numbers for each of the recent five most recent quarter ends. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that the board might have.
Director Binkley, has there been any feedback on why there was such a substantial increase in those pass rates?
From the CPA exam?
Yes.
Yes, I think, I'm trying to recall off the top of my head, I have a whole page of notes that I took in that Board of Examiners meeting. I think in general, the consensus is that candidates are settling into the new model with the core sections and the discipline sections. This is the first time in the history of the CPA exam that candidate choice has been an element. And so I think that it's a combination of candidates settling in, the test prep organizations settling in, getting more comfortable with the content and the updated blueprints, and the universities reacting to those changes in the exam. That was my takeaway. That was my major takeaway from that call.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if this is not the appropriate time for this question, I'll withdraw it and go to new business later. But Jen, just curious, our last meeting, Reed Witcher and you talked about taking on some additional responsibilities for other boards in a department. I'm just curious, I think it was going to start in August. Just curious if you can tell us maybe a quick update on how that's going. I know it's new in the process and
Sure.
you're onboarding things.
Yes, so we started onboarding those boards shortly to my team shortly after that meeting. It has been a learning curve. We're all learning new licensing requirements for those boards. It has not impacted our accountancy metrics. As you can see, our licensing continues and our customer service continues to remain priority. And, well, all of those metrics for all of our boards are a priority. But I have continued to be able to provide most of my support to accountancy as planned. And I haven't seen a decrease in my ability to attend outreach events, work with the TSCPA on things, attend NASPA meetings, things like that. But it has been a learning curve.
I have a question along those lines. So we did this, or we were asked to do this partnership with, I guess, the state under the guise of that this would, I guess, save money or make us less of a deficit. How do you perceive that that's going to work based on us taking on more work? How's that going to help us with our bottom line?
So a portion of our costs that were previously allocated 100% to accountancy, now that we are taking on new programs, a portion of our salary cost, benefits, overhead will be reallocated to those new boards. And I'm sorry if that wasn't clear in July.
And Rob, this is not an official number, but I recall in some of the preliminary conversations I had with Commissioner Witcher that he was estimating the cost that would be allocated from the Board of Accountancy to the other boards would be approximately $60,000, which, if you remember our numbers from yesterday, that would have put us at about a break even. Now, the 60 is a number we bounced around. I don't know if we've settled on that or not, but it was in that ballpark.
That's what I recall as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question. Other questions?
Is there any revenue that gets allocated from the other board to us?
No, so our revenue with the Board of Accountancy is only generated from license revenues, case and complaint revenue related to accountancy.
Jen, I have a few comments. One is, I mentioned this yesterday, but I want to do it again today. Thank you for the outreach efforts. There are several items mentioned in your report, and we are most appreciative of you taking the initiative to do that. Secondly, good news on the newsletter. I've had the privilege of reviewing a draft of it, and it looks great, so we look forward to that coming out soon. And also, you and I have talked about this some, but thank you for the continued superior ratings for customer service. I think that's outstanding, so thank you.
And I have NASPA to thank for how nice our newsletter looks. They do the graphic design for us. I generated the content this time. I was laughing. I think usually Karen is responsible for that, and I was feeling like a toddler, and I said, I will do this. Like, this is my newsletter. So we have NASPA to thank for the nice feel of the newsletter.
Also, you touched on a call. The AICPA Board of Examiners invited Jen and me and executive directors and chairs from other states to participate on this call. Jen mentioned earlier, Mike Decker led it. One of my concerns has been the high pass rate for the tax TCP section of the disciplines, as opposed to maybe the lower rates on bar. And that was addressed during this meeting, and the Board of Examiners feels confident that we have a really good exam, and they're not surprised by those differences in pass rates. I don't remember all of the material that's covered under bar, but it's quite comprehensive. I do remember that executive stock compensation is one of the areas covered under bar, and governmental, and maybe some other areas where students don't necessarily have to study those courses in their curriculum. So the Board of Examiners is quite confident that we have a good exam now. So. Is that accurate?
I think that's what I took away as well, yes.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, I think there are no action items to approve because the meeting dates have already been approved.
Correct.
So we will move to the board committee reports, and up first is Chairman Sam Bennett of the Licensing Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Licensing Committee met yesterday and discussed 4 distinct licensing matters, and I'll walk through each of those. The first involves CPA exam credit extensions. So the board received 3 requests from CPA candidates who had experienced hardship or other circumstances outside of their control. Each requested CPA exam credit extensions ranging from between 3 and 7.5 months. The committee voted yesterday to recommend that the board approve each of these requests. Licensing matter number 2 involves consideration of a new exam for CPE credit. The board received a request from a CPA to consider the National Association of Corporate Directors NACD exam for CPE credit. The committee evaluated the NACD exam subject matter and the program structure, noting that there are 38 other similar exams that currently are eligible for CPE credit in Tennessee. Accordingly, the committee voted to recommend the approval of the NACD exam for CPE credit in the specialized knowledge field of study, noting that the exam would qualify for 20 CPE hours. Licensing matter number 3 involves considering CPE from a sponsor not registered with NASBA. As a result of a routine CPE audit, the board determined that a CPA failed to realize that they had obtained 25 CPE hours from a CPE sponsor that was registered with the IRS but was not registered with NASBA. The CPA requested that the board accept the 25 CPE hours from the unapproved sponsor. The committee noted that the CPE certificates provided by the unapproved sponsor specifically indicated that the CPA should check with their state board to determine whether the education hours covered by the certificate would be considered qualifying hours from a CPE credit perspective. The committee considered the fact that this appeared to be an honest mistake, however, did not feel it was appropriate to grant CPE credit from a sponsor that was not registered with NASBA. Due to the fact that the CPA invested the required amount of time necessary to satisfy his CPA requirement, but failed to realize the distinction between the sponsor being registered with the IRS versus registered with NASBA, the committee voted to recommend the board move to decline the CPA's request to accept the 25 hours from an unregistered sponsor. However, the committee also recommends that the board move to waive the 16 penalty hours and provide the CPA with 180 days to obtain the 25 replacement CPE hours from an approved sponsor. The fourth and final licensing matter involves considering approval of a new foreign education evaluation service provider. The board received a request from Scalero to become an approved foreign education evaluation service provider for Tennessee. Tennessee currently has 8 similar service providers who have been approved. The committee considered the fact that the diligence performed by the board staff did not identify any adverse information about Scalero, and also noted that Scalero is a registered member of AICE, which is one of the 2 primary professional membership associations for firms involved with international credential evaluation. Accordingly, the committee voted to recommend that the board move to approve Scalero as a foreign education evaluation service provider. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Sam. Mr. Lott, help me with this. I think we have 4 motions that we need to approve individually from the committee. Oh. Are we good combining them?
I'll make a motion to approve all 4.
Okay, motion.
As presented.
Well, actually, the motion comes from the committee, and it needs no
Okay,
second.
I'll second it.
So, any discussion? Those in favor of approving these, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will move to the Enforcement Committee. Chairman Andy Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Enforcement Committee met yesterday in committees, and we went through each one of the cases. We also had some other items that we'll start with first. Our first item was that we reviewed the case and complaint report and went through the number of days they've been on the report, 24 individuals and 4 firms. We presented that. We met, and as a committee, we decided that we had asked our attorney, Mr. Lee Lott, to give us some information about a possibility of enforcing or adding Tennessee Code 56-1-311A to include investigative cost. The committee decided to go ahead and do that and to add the cost to those investigations. In such case that we don't believe it needs board approval because it's already Tennessee Code. However, it is included as a recommendation of enforcement to the board today. So that cost would be on there as presented and redone in the enforcement reports or the cases that we have before you today. The actual cost per case was added in there as part of that recommendation for settlement. So we went through that, and then finally, we actually came up with a draft copy of an agreed citation cover letter for regulatory boards complaints that the staff can actually send out if they meet 5 yeses. And the 5 yeses were presented yesterday to say that the most important yes is this a first-time offender? Outside of that, we get, as you know, we get a lot of referrals from the contractors board, and they're pretty cut and dry. And so in this situation, when all 5 yeses have been marked, and the staff can take over from there and send out the letter and the letter of agreed settlement at that point. And then we learned yesterday that the attorneys would come back and tell us, and Jen herself, how many we had and how many letters were sent out. And so I guess that's the only thing we need to vote on. Everybody was given a draft of those revisions and that draft of the letter and also the proposed agreed citation. And so first of all, from the committee, we agreed to approve that, and I would like to present that first as a committee approval as a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It comes from a committee that needs no second. Discussion? Okay, those in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay.
All right.
Thank
you. Next, we're going to go through the legal report and enforcement. We broke it down into 3 sections. We've got the consent, then we've got, it goes through number 12. Then on 13, we got the proposed discipline, and then we got the re-representations, and we had 2 of those. And so we went through cases 1 through 12, which is part of the consent agenda yesterday. There was one case that we had questions about. It was case number 6. we agreed to change the recommendation to closed for lack of evidence from our previous statement that was on that case. Most of them are lack of jurisdiction, lack of evidence, or just referral to an out-of-state board. So I would ask the committee approve cases 1 through 12 with very few comments, and I would put those before you as a recommendation under the consent to approve those as recommended yesterday in committee.
Have a recommendation from the committee. Again, needs no second. Any questions, discussion? Those who approve, say aye. Aye. Any nays, opposed? Thank you.
Next, we have the proposed disciplines. I've asked each one of, we changed the way we did that yesterday. We let our attorneys, and we have Mr. Lott, who did several of them, and then we also have Mr. Johnson, who did some of the cases. And so we're going to start with case number 13, let Mr. Lott start with that and go through and give us a brief summary from yesterday's report and go through each one of these cases. If we have, we'll call for a question after each one. If there are no questions, then we'll approve them all at once. If there are questions, then we may pull that one out and approve the lot that everybody got to hear yesterday, if there weren't any issues with those. In other words, we'll take up the one that may have questions today and talk about it further. So with that, I'll ask Mr. Lott to tell us about case 13.
Yes, sir. Case 13 concerned a failure to respond to a CPE audit in violation of board rules. And the recommendation from council was to authorize formal proceedings. And secondly, to authorize an option to settle via consent order for $315, consisting of a $250 civil penalty and $65 for costs.
Any questions or comments on case 13? All right, seeing none.
Okay, good morning. Moving on to case 14, that's case number 2025-036511. This case was a failure to respond and lack of performing a test service without a peer review. The recommendation from legal was to authorize formal charges for those violations and a civil penalty of $2,500 and to add on $845 of investigation costs, which is half of the costs incurred in this matter. And the committee did concur with that recommendation yesterday.
Any questions or comments?
Okay, moving on to number 15, that's case number 2025-044851. This was a contractor referral case, concerned a lack of a test service with a lack of firm permit and lack of peer review. The recommendation from legal was to authorize formal charges for those violations and offer a settlement with a consent order of a $1,750 civil penalty and cost of $260, which is half of the costs incurred in this matter, and the committee did concur with that recommendation.
Any questions or comments? All right, Mr. Johnson.
Number 16, that is case number 2025-045651. This was a CPE audit case with violations of failure to respond to communications from the board. The recommendation from legal was to authorize formal charges for that violation and a settlement offer via consent order with a $750 civil penalty and $97.50 of investigation costs, which is half of the costs incurred in this matter, and the committee concurred with that recommendation.
Any questions or comments on that case? Mr. Johnson.
Right. Number 17, that's case number 2025-048951. This was another contractor referral case with performing a test service with lack of firm permit and lack of peer review. The recommendation from legal was to authorize formal charges for those violations and a settlement offer through a consent order with a $1,750 civil penalty and costs of $227.50, which is half the costs incurred in this matter, and the committee did concur with that recommendation.
Any questions or comments on that case?
Number 18, that is case number 2025-048631. This was another contractor referral case with a lack of firm permit and lack of peer review when performing a test service. The recommendation from legal was to authorize formal charges for those violations and offer a consent order with a $1,750 civil penalty and $260 in investigation costs, which is half of the cost incurred in this matter, and the committee did concur with that.
Any questions or comments in that case?
All right. Number 19, that's case number 2025-045661. This was a case based on a CPE audit. The violations were failure to respond and lack of compliance with CPE. The recommendation from legal was to authorize formal charges for those violations and a settlement offer through a consent order with a $2,000 civil penalty and costs of $292.50, which is half of the cost incurred in this matter, and the committee concurred with that.
Any questions or comments on that case?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick note. Case 19, Kyle, the next to the last line on recommendation, the last three words, which is HAVE, so that means half, right?
Good catch. We'll correct that. Should be half.
Okay, case number 20 concerned an alleged failure to respond to a CPE audit, a violation of board rules, also a failure to provide timely contact information changes as required under board rule. The recommendation, formal proceedings, and then further authority to settle the matter via consent order requiring a payment of $565, which would consist of $500 in civil penalties, $250 for each of the violations that are alleged, plus $65 in costs.
Any questions on case 20?
Okay, moving on to case number 21. That's case number 2025-045641. This was a case based on a CPE audit with violations found of failure to respond and lack of compliance with a couple CPE hours. The recommendation from legal was to authorize formal charges for those violations and a settlement offer via consent order with a $1,000 civil penalty and cost of $195, which is half of the cost incurred in this matter, and the committee did concur with that.
Any questions on case 21? Mr. Lott?
So case 22 concern an alleged violation of several board rules, in particular the duty to provide documents upon request to a client and the rule on discreditable acts. The case also raised a question about a possible conflict of interest in violation of board rules, which would need to be examined if the matter does not settle. So the recommendation was formal proceedings to proceed under all three of the rules that are just cited there, and with an option to settle the case for $6,292.50. And that consists of $6,000 in civil penalties and then costs of $292.50. And then further, a letter of warning was authorized regarding the issue under the conflict of interest rules.
Any questions about case number 22? All right, seeing none, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the committee, I would like to present proposed disciplines on cases 13 through 22 is just read and is recommended by our staff, our attorney staffs, and/or where the committee changed that. And I believe there was just a couple of minor ones, so case 22 did change, but put that up for approval from the committee.
Great. Again, it comes from the committee as a recommendation. Any discussion? Okay. Those who approve, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, oh, I'm sorry. Please continue. I was just going to note that all of the costs. I just added them up. It's $2,600 that we've added, which is, new revenue, assuming that everyone settles. So that's a significant number, and I'm really glad that we have done that and that you broke that out for us. I also wanted to just comment that the legal team does an excellent job listing all the relevant law and board rules. That is very helpful to read it, even though it's repetitive in each one of these cases. It's good to have it there as a summary, so thank you.
Thank you.
I thought you were done.
Mr. Chairman?
Now we have two re-representation cases. The first one would be case number 23, and Mr. Johnson.
Number 23, that is case number 2024-046751. This is a representation. Previously, the board summarily suspended this licensee's license pending a criminal matter, and he has now pled guilty to a couple counts of serious crimes, as we discussed yesterday. The new recommendation is to authorize formal charges for a violation of TCA 62.6.111.8 and 111.9, and offer the respondent a consent order where he would agree to the revocation of his license.
Mr. Chairman, that was approved in committee, and so I'd like to make a motion to accept that.
Yeah, thank you. And I was going to mention, I think it's good to separate cases 23 and 24 due to the severity of the penalty. So we're voting on case 23. Right?
Correct.
Correct. Any discussion? Those in favor of the sanctions, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Mr. Lott, case 24.
Yes, sir. Case number 24 concerned an alleged multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud financial institutions. The respondent was one of two defendants in a federal criminal action. Due to the criminal action, the matter was placed some time ago in litigation monitoring, and it's been pending there while the criminal case has been proceeding. On June 6th of this year, the respondent pled guilty to 16 felonies. Due to those felonies, respondent is in violation of multiple laws under the Tennessee Accountancy Act and the rules promulgated under the Act. So the recommendation is formal proceedings, authorizing formal proceedings where counsel will seek revocation, and then secondly, an option to settle the matter in a consent order providing for agreed revocation of licensure.
Any comments or questions on case 24? Seeing none, Mr. Chairman, our committee approved that yesterday, and it's a recommendation for approval here to the board as a motion.
Sounds great, and the chair's already given you opportunity to comment, so we'll proceed to a vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Just in summary, Mr. Chairman, for those who have seen the proceedings today on either live or watching this video after the fact, the committees actually do go through, and specifically the Enforcement Committee. We had several hours worth of comments and read through each one of the cases, and I encourage to go back and look at that. We present it today in summary form because we vetted it with the entire board yesterday. Even though we had committee, the other board members were there and were allowed to comment on it. And so I think that we have presented those cases in detail between the 2 days and bring the summaries here today for better use of board time through using the committee. And so I just want to thank the legal staff for that. I want to thank all the work that they do. I can tell you that just to let the board know, on a Saturday morning for 3 hours, me and Mr. Lott went through several phone calls and discussions, and he was giving of his time, as I know Mr. Johnson does, during the week and when we work on these. And so just thank them for all the hard work that they do bringing it together for a summary presentation here to the board, and it makes a big difference. And thank you, gentlemen, and Mr. Duke for Mr. Speed and all he does in the investigations and the way he tracks his time. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I agree. There's a tremendous amount of time and effort expended in preparing the legal reports, and a whole lot happens prior to this meeting with the chair of the Enforcement Committee and Jen and her team, and we really owe them a debt of gratitude. So thank each one of you who participates in that process. I'm worried about Mr. Lott, though. You talking about him working on Saturday, and then he and I spent some time together on Labor Day working on the case that we heard on September 2nd. So, Mr. Lott, you've been working some overtime, and thank you for that.
It's all good.
It's all good. As I recall, we got a signed agreed order about Eastern time. It was 9:30 p.m. on Labor Day, and so it was 8:30 your time, but that's still pretty late, especially on a holiday. And I know you'd worked that whole weekend on it, so thank you for that. Okay, we will move to the Executive Committee section, and Jen, do you mind to lead us through that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yesterday, the Executive Committee met and heard reports from board staff, including a report on travel costs incurred in the most recent quarter for a total of $947.15. The committee also heard an update on fiscal 2025 year-end financial results. The board ended the fiscal year in a deficit of $68,070 with a reserve balance as of June 30th, 2025 of $1,519,174. In addition, the committee was presented with a proposed outline for the 2026 ethics course, which is developed by the TSCPA based on the terms of our memorandum of understanding with the TSCPA. I did make, based on the board's feedback yesterday, based on the committee's feedback, I made a couple of edits, and you should have a printed copy in front of you. 2 edits to note. First was one of my own edits in the spirit of keeping this truly an outline. I removed what is essentially an FAQ under Section D, continuing professional education. We will ensure that we address that FAQ in the material, but I did take it out of the outline. I also added under Section H, the complaint process, I added an additional bullet point for potential disciplinary action based on the committee's feedback. And I would be remiss if I failed to share yesterday, but I did share this ethics course outline with the TSCPA last week to see if they had any feedback on the outline. And one comment that was provided that I thought was a really good comment for consideration was ensuring that we address alternative practice structures in firm ownership. That is something that is top of mind currently, that I continue to stay on top of, as well as NASBA. And I think that I don't know that necessarily needs to be included as a bullet point in our outline, but it will be addressed in the presentation this year. So that is a new addition. Well, it's not an addition to the outline, but it is something that I did want to share with the board. So I'm happy to take any questions on those changes or any other questions that the board has of what the committee discussed.
Jen, the alternative practice structure situation, Jen and I participated in a regional call. I mentioned that yesterday with the NASBA team, and NASBA is working on a white paper to address alternative practice structure. So we really don't have anything definitive at this point to hang our hats on, but we need to be informed of what's going on, and that's happening. So,
Mr. Chairman, I was going to add this with my report, but I'll add it right now. If you looked at the agenda for the annual meeting, the Private Equity Task Force is we're going to have a panel. In that panel, they're going to discuss alternative practice structures, private equity. A private equity toolkit from NASBA is going to be introduced at the annual meeting, and so. I just think that the state of Tennessee you can go online and you can sign up and you can go to the annual meeting, but if you're not there, you don't get the networking. You don't get to talk to people after the fact. You don't get to ask the questions. and the fact that we're sending people to the annual meeting, this year is really focused on some changing things in our profession. And private equity being one of them. And I think that based on, the comments I've been involved in from different meetings, that we're really going to see some great information come out next week at the annual meeting that has been designed to help boards or jurisdictions in accounting. So just excited about that they're going to have that present to share.
Other comments, questions? Okay. Jen, I think our only action item is approval of the outline. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the proposed outline comes as a recommendation from the executive committee. Again, it needs no second. So any discussion before vote? Those in favor of approving the outline, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Okay, we will move to NASBA and AICPA updates, and NASBA Treasurer Andy Bonner will give us a report from NASBA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We haven't had a meeting, board of directors meeting, but we've got one this week. We fly out Wednesday and we go to Chicago before the annual meeting, and we've got our board of directors meeting. But our CEO, Dan Dustin, met with the directors at large a week ago and gave us some updates on things that are going on before we get to the meeting. And one of the most exciting things is that that the CPA app has been designed and downloaded now in excess of 15,000. Actually, they thought that this was last Friday. They actually thought this week it'd probably hit over 20,000. The app was designed to hold 50,000 downloads and active users. And so we haven't gotten to the 50,000 yet, but we're seeing a lot of volume there. I'm on the task force for ALD, and ALD is supposedly went live this week. And with ALD is also CPA Verify has come on. If you use CPA Verify in the past, go online and look at it. It's amazing the changes that has happened to it. This has been a task force that we've been on since last January. We've been working with executive directors across the nation, and we have totally revamped the ALD, and now we're to the point of releasing it. This is version 1. We're going to update it and bring out version 2. Then in February or March, we're going to meet, and then we're going to do a visioning project for the next phase of ALD. And so we've also been working with the Big Four firms to, one of the things that the Big Four firms have an issue with is do the staff have the proper license and proper in each state? And so there's going to be backside to CPA Verify where the Big Four can use that and help out with where any firm that has a large amount of staff that needs verification of the licenses that they can do that. And so that's kind of exciting, and that's happening right now. So I guess, and that's something ALD we can't look at. I can't even, being on the task force, I can't even go in and look at the program. I have to look at the code. And so our executive director and her staff, they get to look at it and they get to use it. And we had 4 or 5 executive directors that were on that task force, and they're excited about it.
Yes, and I'm happy to add some clarification too about how we use it, board staff. So the ALD is the Accountancy Licensee Database, and essentially it is one platform that pulls public information from most every jurisdiction, I think. So it centralizes licensing information. Tennessee has a feed that goes every night with our license information. And we use it, board staff uses it when we're reviewing reciprocal license applications. We'll check it to make sure that in addition to getting a letter of good standing from the board that the licensee is transferring from, we'll also check their records in the ALD and make sure that they align. We also use it when we have when we're reviewing an initial license application and the experience of a candidate is being verified by a licensee of another state, we will refer to the ALD to ensure that they have a valid license. So we use it in a couple different spots, and it is a very helpful tool that NASBA has provided to us, and those are the ways that we use it.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that there's no other professional organization that has anything like this. We lack one state, and that one state had to back off because they were changing their technology, and now they're going to come back in. So in essence, we're going to have all the jurisdictions who are active on ALD. Now, not everybody uploads the same information, and that's the next step we're going to start working on. But the information there that's only for state use is amazing. It really is, based on everything I hear. We just a couple more updates on my committees. We actually went through, and I'm also sat on the audit committee and also the A&F committee and also the investment committee, and we had meetings in the last 3 weeks that detailed out the acceptance of the audit report, and that will be presented at annual. The 990 went through committees and has been approved, and it will be for public view on the websites. And then also our investment committee met, and we got good reviews there, and we're going to challenge ourselves to consider different ways to change up our investments. And so we're going to start looking at that and form a subcommittee in that area. Bill Emmer came in and gave us an update on CPAs, and you just can't make this stuff up. I mean, here we are today. I was going to present this, and then we've got the people back here who are responsible for that, who at NASBA help us do that, the onboarding. And the CPAs is at a record level. I don't know if you recall, but a couple of years ago, we had a backlog in that area with everything happening with the exam and the changeover and people trying to get in and take the exam before the new exam came out. And the staff and Bill got together. They revamped the process, as we like to say at Alabama. And they redesigned the process and came up with a better way, a methodology of doing it. And the timelines are at new lows, and they've stayed there. And so compliments to the staff and NASBA for all that they have done. They have really made the ability for people to get in, get approved to sit for the exam. They've made it easier. They've taken the backlog down, and just appreciate all that they do with our candidates who are trying to get into the profession. The final thing that we heard was that now some of the states are starting to question the number of hours for continuing education that's required. There seems to be a movement. Currently 5 states are looking into the number of hours for continuing education. And they said that some of them were being modeled after New York. So if you have a chance to go down and look how they do it, New York has a thing that says if you have 24 hours of just tax for a year, then that substitutes the 40. But if you have 10 tax, 10 audit, 10 A&A, and then 10 of just other, then you'd have to have 40. But if you have a major segment, you can get less CPE. Some of the states are looking at reducing the number of hours down to 24 or 30 or less than 40 hours a year. And, I think that's just something that's coming. I believe that we're going to be introduced to that at the annual meeting, but that's just something for this board to, if you see anything, read it. Encourage you to go out and look at what New York publishes as their CPE requirements, and just I think it's going to become a discussion area as we continue on through this year. at next. So, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner. Dr. Hart, I know you can relate to this. There are some open wounds in this room over a football game that occurred last weekend. And why in the world Mr. Bonner would mention Alabama during this report is beyond me.
I didn't know if I could object, but formally I object.
Thank you, Andy. Great report. Any other NASBA committee updates?
Mr. Chairman, I serve on the Communications Committee, and the reason I want to bring it up to date today is just because one of the things we've worked on recently is I think the board really in NASBA is interested in developing a state board deregulation toolkit in light of all the activities we've seen as far as deregulation around the country, some of the states, most notably Florida, and their recent attempt at passing legislation which would have changed maybe existence of a state board and need for CPE. And so some of the things our committee worked on with Tom and Cassandra is going back to the board with providing input in terms of public service announcement type videos to help educate the public. You know, what's a CPA? How do they get to become a CPA? Why are they licensed? Why is it important? Why is it important that we have state boards of accountancy? You know, why do we have CPE? A lot of people don't know, and, you know, may come down to some point to legislatures and people being able to help influence our very existence and, you know, the need for CPE and licensing of our profession. So that's something of note that we've been working on here recently.
Thank you, John. Other reports? I will remind the board that we each have the opportunity to participate on NASBA committees, and I would encourage you to do so if you have time and would care to volunteer for that. I believe the applications for committees occurs in spring, maybe March. Michael, do you, right, spring, so.
It's usually April to June, depending on, most of the time in May, but sometimes it comes out a little bit earlier in April, and then I've seen it as late as June, but in that time frame.
So it's a great opportunity to participate in profession and NASBA's work. So, no other NASBA or AICPA reports? Okay, I want to give you, some of this is NASBA, but I want to give you a little update from my perspective of what's been going on. This past quarter has been very busy, and again, our staff has done a ton of work, but the first item I want to mention was August the 11th, the NASBA Enforcement Resources Committee, which I serve on, met, and we actually met at the NASBA office, and that was a very interesting meeting. One of the presenters was Cedric Newbern, who heads the Center for Public Trust, and he did remind us of the NASBA ethics course, which sometimes we use in conjunction with other disciplinary action. There are 3 modules to that course, and then, Jen, you may know this already, but Tennessee could add a 4th module to tailor, if we wanted to talk about licensing contractors, for example, we could add a separate module for that. But that is definitely a resource that's available to us, and again, we've used that some in the past. We also had an update from Bree Allen. Bree is NASBA's chief legal counsel, and she talked with us about NASBA's goal of sit-down meetings, annual sit-down meetings with governmental agencies, including the DOL, SEC, PCAOB, IRS, and DHS. And the goal is to figure out ways to better share information to maybe streamline some of the disciplinary work so that we're not duplicating work of other agencies, but still to mete out the proper disciplinary action among those groups. So it's a great concept. The NASBA team actually had several of those sit-down meetings this year, but they intend for it to be annual meetings. So good work in that area. Then many of us participated in the special meeting, specially called meeting that we had on September 2nd. I alluded to that earlier. But that meeting went much different than we had planned for. The respondent had actually requested a hearing on September 2nd, which is what we spent a week or so planning for. And ultimately, the respondent, the night before the meeting, agreed to the order of voluntary suspension. Correct, Mr. Lott? And so we scrambled a bit and still had the meeting, but it was, again, much different than what we had planned for. So thank you, Lee and Jen, for your flexibility in that. And because a lot of work went into place planning for the much different meeting than we actually had. Then on that same day, September 2nd, Jen and I participated in the NASBA regional call, and that's the meeting where, among other things, we discussed the alternative practice structures, and at that point, NASBA let us know about the work that they're doing on the white paper report regarding APSs. September the 11th, Jen and I participated in the call with the AICPA Board of Examiners. It's the call that Jen mentioned earlier that Mike Decker led, and so we got a detailed update regarding exam scores. Most of that I've already told you about. And then last week, Tuesday of last week, we participated in the sunset hearing for this board. I'm not sure what would happen if we did not get extended as a board. I don't know what would happen in the state of Tennessee, who would do licensing. I suppose there wouldn't be none, but we did get re-extended for 4 years, and Jen did a lot of work in preparing, or Jen and her team did a lot of work in preparing the responses that the committee had presented, and then Reed Witcher presented those on our behalf. So we did get the 4-year extension. Okay. Any other comments? Meetings, NASBA, ICPA? Okay. Mr. Lott, sunset. I'm sorry, sunshine. Sunset was where I was at. Sunshine now.
Yes, sir. I'll try to make this brief. This is training that the board has on a periodic basis, and of course, all programs get this training. It's very important, kind of overall principles that the agencies follow and the boards and programs. So this is really written for all programs. You'll see that it's stated generally, but of course, it applies directly to this board. So this is just a disclaimer saying this is not legal advice. No one should rely on this as legal advice. This is just a general guide. So our first topic is the Public Records Act. I'll just briefly state a couple of things here. You know, the documents that are produced here are public records. That includes papers, letters, maps, books, photographs, microfilms, sound recordings, electronic data. That's subject to request from the public. They can request copies. There are certain protections for private matters and other exceptions to the rule, but generally, members of the public can, certainly Tennesseans, can request the public documents. That doesn't include, notably, actual devices like iPads. So that's a brief summary there. Again, you can always call me if you have questions about this stuff, but the second big topic for today, the biggest topic for today, is the Open Meetings Act. What is the Open Meetings Act? These are the topics that we're going to go through. What is a meeting? What's required? What happens if the board violates? So the Tennessee Code provides that the General Assembly hereby declares it to be the policy of this state that the formation of public policy and decisions, like the decisions you're making today, is public business and shall not be conducted in secret. This is to be construed not again. Free speech. Free speech is, of course, also a sacred right we have, and the act should not be construed to limit free speech. The Open Meetings Act has a goal to promote openness and accountability in government. Therefore, it is best to interpret the act broadly, and you'll see that we do that. We don't just try to go right up to the line. We take a very safe position and course of action under this act so that we are doubly cautious about making sure there's no violation. So under the code, quote, all meetings, by the way, PowerPoint 101, you're not supposed to just read from the PowerPoint, so I apologize for doing that, but sometimes it's just the best way, especially if it's really important statutory language. All meetings of any governing body are declared to be public meetings, open to the public at all times, except as provided in the Constitution. So the code says a governing body is, well, let me just tell you, this board is a governing body. The act applies to every meeting of this board. Meeting means the convening of a governing body of a public body for which a quorum is required in order to make a decision or to deliberate toward a decision on any matter. What is not a meeting? It doesn't include on-site inspections. It also does not include a chance meeting of 2 or more members. You know, you're going to run into each other in front of the elevator, maybe here or somewhere else. You might work together. So if you have a chance meeting, that's fine. That's not it's not meant to be public. You just can't kind of use that as some kind of strategy, and no one here would ever do that, in some kind of effort to circumvent the spirit of the act. What's not a meeting? 2 or more members of a public body may share a meal together. Lunch breaks, restroom breaks, smoke breaks, recesses, adjournments. These are all times, these are not meetings, so they don't have to be public. But of course, board business should not be discussed. The code says regular meetings and special meetings count as meetings. Now, there is an exception for executive sessions. An executive session really is just a meeting about litigation. It's when 1 or more members meet with the board's attorney, the board is under a lawsuit or has been threatened with a lawsuit, and questions may be presented about the about the lawsuit. And though the executive sessions do not have to be in the public. The board may not deliberate about any specific matter before it. In other words, board business. You can't use the executive session to talk about other board business. It has to be concerning that lawsuit. This is just an example about oral interviews with the Civil Service Commission. And this PowerPoint is available to you. If you want to go back and study it further, we can give you a copy. It might already be provided, I don't know. So here, okay, what's a meeting? What if one of you emails the other and says, here's a news article? What if you send an email or a text that says, I'd like something included on the next agenda? Well, okay, in theory, that's not deciding or deliberating about board business. That's not board business. In fact, you're trying to get something set on the agenda of a public meeting. So it's a good thing, right? But I think it's best not to email or text, just because you don't want to ever have a question. Is this deliberation? Again, the statute says you cannot, out of the public eye, you cannot decide a matter. You can't even deliberate, right? Well, do you really want to have a question as, does this email constitute deliberation? What if the email said this? Here's a news item about one of our licensees. We should consider revocation. Well, that's deliberation. You know, the code, the Tennessee Code doesn't define the word deliberation. The courts have wrestled with this. They've, I think in one opinion, relied on a definition of the word deliberation in the dictionary. So that's just, we don't, yet again, we want to interpret the act broadly. So it's best just to not communicate, email, text, don't do it. Now, and here's another thing, if you pick up the phone and you call someone on the board, and that's not a chance meeting. You can't say, oh, well, we just had a chance meeting. Well, it's not chance because you picked up the phone and then started talking about board business. What if 1 or more members cannot attend a meeting? Okay. So here, this has to do with absence. The absent member may participate electronically at a meeting, but all votes must be done by roll call. And I think we didn't have to do that this time because everyone is here, but recently we've had meetings where one of the members or more, participated electronically, so you just do the votes by roll call. What if one or more members cannot attend a meeting in person? So the code speaks to this. A member of the governing, of the board, meeting by electronic means is considered physically present for purposes of voting and for purposes of establishing a quorum. The vote has to be done by voice, but it is a valid vote. A governing body shall meet with a quorum physically present no less than once per year. So this board meets 4 times a year, so we don't even get close to having to deal with that. But if for some reason we went a long period of time and had a bunch of meetings without a physical quorum, which is 6, by the way, this is an 11-person board, a quorum is a majority, so that's 6. There have to be at least 6 people here to have a quorum. If you go more than a year, then, gosh, if you go 2 years, you have to send a report to the Secretary of State. So you don't want to, we don't come close to that. What is a meeting? The act is to be construed most favorably to the public, all-encompassing, applies to every meeting. On its face, again, this is just emphasizing the point about open meetings. Read the statute broadly. The public has the right to attend meetings. That's the whole purpose of it being an open meeting. So the public can watch it. They watch it online. They can show up, sit in the gallery. They can also, under the right guidelines, make comments. Public comment is to be permitted at each meeting, is limited to items listed on the agenda. And then there's some examples listed there. So there's a 3-pronged test for notice. It does no good to have a public meeting if you don't give the public notice about the meeting, and you have to do it well in advance. So there's a 3-pronged test for what is adequate public notice. Number 1, the contents of the notice must reasonably describe the purpose of the meeting or the proposed action to be taken. And of course, we do that. Number 2, it must be posted at a time sufficiently in advance of the meeting to give citizens an opportunity to learn about it and to attend. There's no bright line dates, but it's got to be it has to be done reasonably in advance. And then it must be posted in a location where a member of the community could become aware of such notice. Posting a notice online, you're welcome. He's welcome to come in. This is a public meeting. I don't know if he was. All right. Posting a notice online to meet the adequate public notice requirements is contingent on the facts and circumstances behind the posting. So in other words, if there's a question, it would become very fact specific. We try to avoid any question there by just doing something well in advance with very clear notice. Same thing, same point. Yeah, if you don't have adequate notice, the meeting is a nullity. And I don't know the exact legal proceeding, but someone ultimately could request costs and attorney's fees that would have to be paid out of the budget for this board. In a nutshell, the Open Meetings Act is designed to make sure all board business is conducted in a way accessible to the public. It applies to you, both as an individual member and collectively as a board. All gatherings of one or more meetings are meetings. One or more members are meetings, and they're covered by the Act, including regular meetings, special meetings, and emergency meetings. Also, committees and subcommittees, which we had yesterday. The only exception is the executive session, which is your opportunity to ask board attorney questions about a lawsuit. Another exception would be a chance meeting, but of course, you're not discussing board business at a chance meeting. If you violate the law, any violative acts are void. Again, this is just repeating, cost of litigation and attorney's fees may be assessed against the board. So here's a third topic for today. This is really not about kind of open records, sunshine, but what it is it's about what you decide, and kind of one of the kind of relatively, I mean, in the last decade, a new limit on your decisions, what you can and cannot do. Of course, it's not really that new. This is essentially, what I'm going to be talking about here is essentially what you learned in civics class in high school, that there are 3 branches of government. The legislative branch makes the law, the judicial branch interprets the law, and the executive branch enforces the law. Well, you're in the executive branch, okay? So you do not make law. You enforce law. Now, you, of course, obviously make rules, but those rules are all based in statute, which is law made by the legislature. So you're not really making law, you're simply enacting rules that are used to enforce the law. So this North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners was a case that went to the Supreme Court in 2015. A board, just like you, it was in the dental industry, dentists, a board of dentists, got mad at somebody for doing teeth whitening. Said, you can't do teeth whitening, and they got really tough on them. They issued 47 cease and desist orders. Anyway, the Federal Trade Commission, go back, please. Okay, no problem, it's okay. The Federal Trade Commission filed a lawsuit. So just think about that. You can do something that upsets the Federal Trade Commission and they can file a lawsuit against this board. So what happened here, thank you, okay. To defend the case, the Board of Dental Examiners argued immunity. You know, it's good to be the king. Well, you're in the government. So historically, you can't sue the government. Of course, there are plenty of exceptions now, but they argued immunity. And the United States Supreme Court really just kind of focused on that question. Was there immunity? And they essentially decided there's no immunity because the board went wild. The board did not operate under the legislative law. They didn't act according to law passed by the legislature. They went off and made up their own rule that had no basis in legislation, no basis in the code, whatever that's the North Carolina State Code. Now, the Supreme Court, has really well-written opinions. I highly recommend you read that opinion, frankly. And you can find it easily. Just look up North Carolina Dental Examiners, 2015. It'll come up on the internet. And the Supreme Court law clerks they write really good opinions. So here's some quotes. What is state supervision? In other words, the legislature supervising the board. It's the inquiry regarding active supervision. The inquiry regarding active supervision is flexible and context dependent. Active supervision need not entail day-to-day involvement in an agency's operations or micromanagement of its every decision. So you notice there's not a person from the legislature sitting here watching you guys, watching all of you, excuse me. Rather, the question is whether the state's review mechanisms provide realistic assurance that a non-sovereign actor's anti-competitive conduct promotes state policy rather than merely the party's individual interests. So there you had a board of dentists. They essentially, allegedly, were behaving in an anti-competitive way, trying to broaden the scope of their industry beyond what the statute provided and even cover teeth whitening. Now, in Tennessee, in a lot of states, we reacted to this Supreme Court decision by passing law that kind of put in a safeguard. So in this statute here, we created supervising officials, and that's essentially the commissioner or a designee. The role of the supervising official in Tennessee. Each supervising official shall ensure that the actions of regulatory boards that displace competition are consistent with state policy. Now, see, in North Carolina, the legislature could have said, teeth whitening is part of the dental industry. We hereby declare that that's regulated. Teeth whitening is regulated. They could have done that. They didn't. So here in Tennessee, we're going to do the same type of analysis. If this board does something that goes against a particular respondent, if there's a question raised, this supervising official is going to make sure that there is a law that you are enforcing. Other than rulemaking, the supervising official shall evaluate whether the action may constitute a potentially unreasonable restraint of trade that requires further review. There are a lot of procedures there. So that's it. Those are the three topics. Of course, every time I send out an email, my contact information is there. You can contact me any way you want to, anytime you want to. Yes, sir.
Who is our supervising official?
Well, for the department, Cherie Anderson is the director of policy. So I believe she might be the person who fits under that statute, and she's very active and is probably listening to us right now. Let's say again. Oh, Reed. Yeah, right. Ultimately, Carter Lawrence is the commissioner of the department, and the assistant commissioner over regulatory boards is Reed Witcher.
Other questions, comments?
I do want to say thank you. That clarified quite a bit of things coming in to a board role of this nature. So thank you for updating.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Thank you, Lee. We will move to the new business section of our agenda. Any items for discussion? So Jen and I have talked about this some, and we wanted to get your thoughts. Jen has revamped the way that we award CPE credits to board members, and so you've probably noticed that from the prior meetings that you're receiving credit for the actual number of hours we participate in these board meetings, CPE hours. And the question that has arisen is whether or not the hours that we spend in these meetings qualify as state-specific or not. And I'll probably prejudice you with my statement, but I think they do. We do a lot of work that's state-specific in dealing with the board and the enforcement and the licensing and so forth, but we wanted to get your thoughts on that.
And maybe I can add a little bit of history there for the benefit of the new board members. So when I came into this role a year ago, board members who participated in meetings were receiving, I believe, 1 hour of CPE credit for the committee meetings and 1 hour for the board meetings. And those, I actually don't remember, I think it was in regulatory ethics.
State-specific.
It was in state-specific. Okay. I'm sorry that I took that away from y'all. So I had asked the question after my second board meeting of why are we only giving an hour? Why don't we give the full time minus breaks in the same way that a NASBA, we're a governmental entity. We don't have to be NASBA approved, but following those same criteria. And so we did realign the number of hours that are given with the length of time, accounting for any breaks that are taken, the CPs that are given to board members, or CPAs, I should say, who are participating. And at the time, I decided to set all of those hours as regulatory ethics instead of state-specific. So I think we can certainly make a change there. I agree that the topics that are discussed are Tennessee-specific, certainly. So I'm supportive of whatever the board would like to do there.
Jen, are you saying all the time would fall under state-specific ethics?
Do you
I
have
think that's what we're discussing now,
Yes.
probably, so.
So that puts a limit of 2 hours on its usability as a licensee. Each year you get two years. It still falls under regulatory under the overall hour requirement.
It would fall under ethics, so you could get us, there's not a limit on the ethics side that we can get, but we have stated that it has to be 2 hours of specific to Tennessee. We would just have more specific to Tennessee.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Jen, also, I believe that in prior years, that we were awarded 1 hour total for the committee and board meetings, so only 1 hour for the 2 days, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment about this. I think it should be state-specific because if you've ever attended a state-specific, which you have, you'll realize that most of what they discuss, are decisions that we've made at the board, or the board has made, such as cases that where they'll talk about particular cases of what, like yesterday, we decided, I asked, hey, make sure we talk about case 22, or that they at least consider discussing that, because I thought it was very important. So I think it's state-specific because in theory, we should know more about state-specific ethics than most, because we basically set the agenda for the state-specific outline. So thank you.
I think that's also reinforced by those comments or phrase where we say certain things are outside of our jurisdiction, which would suggest then that we are looking more closely at those things that do affect persons of this state.
Question, Mr. Chairman. If we conclude that this is state-specific, then I presume that would obviate the need for any of us to therefore take the TSCPA issued course. Would we extend the same accommodation then to any member of the public who chose alternatively to come to these meetings as opposed to taking that course?
It was my understanding that if you came to a state board meeting and you sat through it, that you got an hour of state-specific ethics for attending that meeting. I would encourage us to consider to keep doing that. I know that it was very rare that we had somebody come in and do that, but that's always been my understanding of before I came on the board, and while I was on the board, I know Wendy was doing that. And I think it's good. And I think it's good to attend the 2-hour courses that we actually have too with the presenters. I know that maybe a year ago, maybe it's 2 years ago, Wendy and myself and another board member were, I think it was John, we were present in Kingsport, and a professor was doing the ethics course for the convention, and Wendy went up and kind of talked about it. I know that you have done that too. They asked a question to a couple of, at that time I was chair, and I got to introduce the board members that were there for the convention. I also got I was asked for input as they were going through it, not specific about any case, but just a comment on a case that was presented. I guess it was specific to a case, because at that time, the names and everything, we don't know the names of any of the people that we see. But it was interesting to see the questions and answers, and just to be a part of it. And it kind of changed the way that I comment in the committee, so that somebody going back and listening to our recordings could understand it differently, and which helped out a lot too. I didn't realize that people were doing that, but they are. They may not get to watch this meeting today, but on a future meeting, they may actually go back and look at it. So I think that, in a round circle event, I think we should encourage members of the profession to come and to sit at this board and listen to it as it's being done. And specifically, committee day is the best day to come. And this is one of those moments of telling them what day is the best. But also, just to come in here and see what this board goes through. I never did it before I got on the board, but I watched it because I had friends that were on the board, and it made a big difference on how I looked at what we do in Tennessee.
So, Brad, that's a great question you asked. What I do know is that we have awarded CPE to people who come and sit for the meetings or maybe watch them online. What I don't know is whether we've historically awarded those as state-specific or not. I think we have not, because we require the course for pretty much all licensees, except the board members who've been granted the state CPE credit for these meetings.
Well, it would seem to me if we're going to allow ourselves to have these meetings satisfy the state ethics, any member of the public licensee who would choose to come to these meetings as well, we would offer those individuals the same accommodation. Otherwise, I would question why we would give it to ourselves and not to anyone else.
I think some distinction, though, is important there. We spend a lot of time preparing for these meetings and reviewing material, which the attendees would not do. So there is some distinction in my mind with that. But
and then maybe that would be the extent to which we receive credit versus somebody else would.
Right.
They could accommodate for that, but the content is consumed presumably by anyone who attends.
Another thought on that, we do not currently have, I think it would have to be an in-person attendee, since we do not currently have a way to monitor online attendance. We could see that someone was present in the Teams meeting, but you've all attended a virtual event where you have to answer a polling question, and we don't have a setup like that.
Yes.
I would have concerns about a state specific for a meeting attendee if it's a one-time meeting. There's quite a bit that's covered within those courses that individuals may miss. And countering that, I'm thinking about it's a maximum of 2 state-specific CPE that the board would receive. And so over the course of the meetings that are held, there's lots of opportunity and necessary opportunity to refer to the code and what it holds us to. So from that perspective, a maximum of 2 given seems reasonable for a state ethics CPE. I still would attend because I do think it's something that's important, but for sure, that would be my insight on that.
That's a great point. I think Mr. Lott gets tired of me asking him to send me copies of the relevant statute. So I have multiple emails from Mr. Lott with excerpts from the statute. That's a really good point. Other comments? Okay. I don't think we need any formal action at this point, but Jen was wanting to solicit comments, and so thank you for that, your participation in that. We will move on to the public comments section of the agenda. Karen, I will ask you, anyone signed up or any online?
No, sir.
Okay, no public comments. So with that, we will actually entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Adjourn. Second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Great to be here with you.
Very good meeting.